Hi guys, Mamie here with OneJoyousSkip.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am going to be using the Adorable Elephants stamp set by My Favorite Things, and I'm creating this card for Not2ShabbyShop.com as I am guest designing for them for the month of February, so I am super excited. So please check out my other videos that I am posting for Not2ShabbyShop.com. And I also have a discount code for you guys, and it is JOY10. And so when you're checking out there, just use that discount code and you'll get an extra 10% off. And so I am stamping on watercolor background here, and I am using VersaFine Black Onyx ink to stamp out all the images. And I'm using some masking paper as well because I'm going to be doing some ink blending on the background. And so I'm using that Post-it tape for the balloons, and I use some Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo paper for the elephant. I also created a little bit of a landscape here just by drawing it on, hand drawing a little hill. And I'm pulling my swatch out here for my distress inks to see what color I want to use for the background. And I end up using the Salty Ocean and the Tumble Glass. And I'm going to be kind of going from darkest to lightest. And so I don't know if you can tell or not, but this is a Valentine's card. Since it is the month of February, I decided to create a couple of Valentine cards. But it's not going to be your traditional Valentine card. It's going to have some fun, different colors instead of the traditional reds. So here I'm ink blending on the background. I'm just working my way up. And I'm going to be using the pounce and twist method that I like to use sometimes whenever I get worried that I'm pulling up the masking paper. And so as you can see, I already pulled it up a little bit there. And so I start using the pounce and twist method. And so it's just basically pouncing it down and twisting it without rubbing against the paper, because rubbing against the paper sometimes pulls up that masking paper. But it ended up working out okay, so I was happy with that. And now I'm able to move on to the Tumble Glass to finish it off. And then I'm going to pull off all the masking paper from the balloons and from the elephant just to reveal the underneath. And I usually edit out something that I'm doing over and over again, like removing these masks, but for some reason I just love the feeling and the visual of pulling up the masks. And so here I'm going to start pulling those up. I just like the stark white contrast against the blending. It just looks really cool. And this card is also going to be part of my Valentine series as well. And so you can see my other cards in my Valentine series just by typing in Valentine series. So you can find me on YouTube under Mamie Carson, and you can find my website at www.onejoyousskip.com, and my YouTube is on there as well. Okay, and so I pulled everything up there, and I'm going to ink blend the bottom part here to put in some grass. So I'm just going to flip that over and use the Mowed Lawn to color in the bottom. And I'm starting on the paper there because that Mowed Lawn is really dark. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a whole lot of streaking, even though you don't have to worry about streaking as much if you're using watercolor cardstock. Okay, and now everything is looking pretty good and blended, and so I'm going to pull in my greens now to, oh, well actually I'm going to tape down the surface first because I like to move my picture around so much and it gets out of frame. But actually I'm pulling out my gray first. I'm going to color in the elephant. Sorry, I've done this voiceover like 5 times already because things keep getting in the way. And so I can't remember what I've said already and what I haven't said, and so it's a little bit confusing. And it's getting late. So anyway, so I'm using my grays here, and I'm coloring in just the shadow areas on the elephant. And I'm using 2 color grays, a dark and a light. And so I'm not going to be using any kind of a water brush or anything. This is just going to be straight saturated watercolor here. I wanted to keep it nice and saturated with a lot of color. I might have saturated a little too much though, because it ended up kind of, I don't know, getting away from me, you could say. But that's okay, because that's how watercolor acts, and I think people have to get used to, not watercolor not always doing exactly what you want it to do. And so for a control freak, it can be hard at first, but I like the freedom of watercoloring. Well, if you could call this watercoloring. Okay, and I think my little sweet elephant is looking pretty good. And so to color in the balloons, oh man, I'm just doing really simple coloring. I just put in a couple of dark shadows up on the top and then just colored them in, basically. And I didn't really like this color green in the end, but I wasn't going to start it all over. So it ended up turning out okay, but the green was a little bit dark for my taste and matched the grass a little too much. But I'm not sure if it's just me being particular or what it is. So sometimes you just have to go with what you're doing based on your past history, that your cards have turned out okay. So you just have to trust it. So I'm not going to show you all the coloring for all the balloons. I'm just trying to show you a couple of them because I didn't do anything extensive on any of the balloons. Just add a little bit of dark shading and then just colored them in. But later on I do go over the whole thing with my Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen that's long, and fill those in again. And so it does also mix those colors together a little bit better as well. And there's my head just coming in to see, like, oh my gosh, what is going on with this coloring? The Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers do act a little bit different on watercolor paper than they do on Bristol. And I'm usually using the Bristol. But whenever I use Bristol and I do ink blending, I don't really like the ink blending. I feel like it gets really muted. And so I did it on watercolor paper. And so, it's the good with the bad. I really like the ink blending, but then the coloring was a little bit harder for me to get the look that I was trying to go for. But it still looked okay, Still looked pretty good. So I'll be okay with that. And once I blend it out with the Spectrum Noir glitter pen, it really evens it out even more. So you see, it takes a little bit of work to get those colors to blend, even if you do have it kind of wet underneath, but that's okay. Every card you learn something new, That's what I love about it. And so now I'm just coloring in the elephant's little ears, and then I'm going to be working on the grass, which the grass is really easy to do with these markers because it does create such fine lines. You can get those grass blades looking really good. So I'm just picking out my colors now. And to create my grass blades, I just use letters in the alphabet, like the letter I, V, W, and you just flick up very thin lines towards the top, and you should get some really realistic looking grass if you just use some of those letters from the alphabet. And I think that's looking pretty good. And I usually leave the coloring pretty simple when I do these cards because they are so long already. I just can't seem to make an easy short card. It always takes forever. And so if I had more time, I could do like a lot more drawn out, like coloring. So if you'd like to see something where I'm just basically coloring one image, let me know, because I'm not really 100% sure what you guys like to see. So I just kind of put whatever I'm working on out there. But if there's something in particular you guys would like to see, please let me know, because I do answer all the comments, or 99% of the comments. If I missed one somehow, sorry. But I do answer most of the comments. and I definitely try to do what you guys like. So here I'm just using my Prismacolor pen, and I'm just doodling in the little strings at the bottom of the balloons, not really worrying about how fancy they look. They look fine. And now I'm using my double stitch rectangle die there to create just a little bit of a border with the stitching. You can't really see it, but you can see it up close. And now I'm going to be using the stamp set that comes with the set that says "You Are Unforgettable." And I'm going to be heat embossing this on some black cardstock, and I'm preparing the paper there with my embossing buddy, and that just keeps all the moisture and the static off of the paper, and so you won't have your embossing powder sticking all over areas you don't want it to stick. And so I'm using that Versamark it's called Watermark stamp pad, and it works for this powder embossing, and you can get that anywhere. Any craft store has that. If you'd like to do some heat embossing, try that out. It's probably one of the card maker's favorite things to do. And so I put that on this little black piece of cardstock rather, and I'm cutting out just a little banner design. I'm just going to put that right there. And since my background was so colorful, I really wanted to help the sentiment stick out, so I gave it a pop of black for that. And I'm using some fun foam to help pop up this panel, just to give it a little bit of dimension, give the card a little bit of variety. And I'm using my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive here to put the panel onto the card, because that gives you a little bit of wiggle room. I'm using a top folding A2 size card here. And so if you use that glue, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that you have all of your measurements correct. And I'm also going to pop up this little sentiment as well. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. And so I end up using my Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen here to fill in the balloons, but make sure that you rub off that color after each balloon, because it does reactivate the watercolor underneath. And so I think that really helped the balloons kind of blend out and fade their color out a little bit, because they were a little bit bright. Okay, and so that's basically all I did for this card here today, and I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by and liking and subscribing to my channel. And make sure that you stop by the Not2ShabbyShop.com. I will have the details listed below in the detailed description box. And if you have any comments for me, that if I left something out or if I didn't mention anything, just leave that in the comments. And I will see you guys in the next video.